Oh, here we are on a Friday. Welcome into the Stone Shield Show. My name is Stone Shield. It's a little Victory Friday here in the city of Cincinnati. How about the Cincinnati Bengals pulling off a huge upset on the road, M&T Bank Stadium, against division rival Baltimore Ravens by a score of 32-14. And there is so much to discuss about that football game. And number 9, he comes back. What about all those people? Oh, you should sit down. Don't play him. Sit him down the rest of the year. We'll see you in 2026. Yeah, I don't know what to say if you were one of those people. I think you probably feel pretty silly right about now. What a performance from him. Was it perfect? Absolutely not, but was it good enough to go on the road and win? You bet your bottom dollar it was. Huge win for the Cincinnati Bengals. We haven't had one of these in a while, right? You know, the Bengals won that game Thursday night several weeks ago against Pittsburgh, and you thought maybe they'd establish a little bit of momentum. It's been downhill ever since, but here comes Cincinnati. Thanksgiving night, they go into Baltimore, pick up a huge win, 32-14. So we got lots to unpack as it relates to that game. We'll kind of go through the game as we always do. Noteworthy plays, key plays throughout the game, and just kind of general takeaways. Obviously, a lot to discuss with Joe Burrow, and a lot to discuss with this Cincinnati Bengals defense there as well. Because don't look now, but these past 3 games have been really, really good, or really, really solid, I should say, from the Cincinnati Bengals defense. And this certainly probably their best performance of the year, right? Forcing 5 turnovers from the Baltimore Ravens in this game. So plenty to discuss. Last night's Thanksgiving Day primetime showdown, Bengals and the Ravens. And certainly hope everybody had a fantastic Thanksgiving. I know I did myself. But, yeah, there was no way we weren't going to do a show today. You kidding me? On a Friday, Victory Friday after the Bengals win. So happy to be here and spend about an hour with you guys as we roll through the game, and plenty of other things to discuss there as well. We usually do our college football weekend preview every Friday, but we're not going to do a full college football weekend preview because I think there's 2 games that kind of stand out. And certainly here in the state of Ohio, there's one that everybody is focused on, and that will transpire at noon on Saturday in Ann Arbor. The game, as they call it. We're going to talk Ohio State, Michigan, as Ohio State looks to get this monkey off their back. 4 straight years the Michigan Wolverines have beat the Ohio State Buckeyes, kind of have punched them in the mouth for 4 consecutive years there as well. Once again, Ohio State going to be favored in this game. Not favored by 20 like they were last year, but 9.5-point favorites right now. We'll preview that game. We'll talk Iron Bowl there as well. Alabama, of course, lost to Oklahoma, but still have everything in front of them. Most likely going to be in the SEC Championship if you can pull out a victory here in this game. And then obviously college football playoff more than likely there as well. But all the positive momentum Kalen DeBoer has established since that loss since Florida State. You lose this game against Auburn, that's all going to come crashing down. You'll miss the playoffs back-to-back years, and it'll get noisy once again in Tuscaloosa. So a huge game for Kalen DeBoer. Iron Bowl, Saturday night, Jordan-Hare Stadium. Looking forward to that. Also, we'll do our best bets of the weekend. Thought about doing this on Wednesday. If we did, it would have worked out for us because the Packers and the Bengals certainly would have been 2 of the plays, but that's all right. We'll do it here on a Friday. 7 plays coming your way. We've established some positive momentum over the course of the past few weeks, and certainly looking forward to our best bets of the weekend as we try to build some more momentum here at the show. Appreciate everyone as always. Reed Mouse is out today, but he will be back next week, so certainly looking forward to that. We'll have some guests on the show, normal programming, 10 to noon. Reed first hour with me, and then me in the second hour. So certainly looking forward to that. But let's talk about this Cincinnati Bengals game. Unbelievable. Hopped on the post-game show last night with Craig Sandlin. That was an unbelievable stream. Shout out to Craig. He did a tremendous job throughout the duration of that game. Pre-game, had some people on for halftime there as well on Thanksgiving, obviously, making a huge sacrifice. So we certainly appreciate Craig Sandlin, all he did for us yesterday. Had a lot of fun on the post-game show. But Cincinnati wins 32-14, and lots of takeaways, really, from this game. And, of course, we have to start with Joe Burrow, and I kind of want to start with how Zach Taylor handled him early on in the game. I thought the first drive for Cincinnati, obviously they get the ball to start the game. 9 runs out there, and everyone's kind of holding their breath collectively, right? Like, what are we going to see? Is he going to be moving around? How's he going to look? Is he going to look like Joe Burrow, or is he going to look like a guy that hasn't played in several months? And I thought Zach did a tremendous job. He said, you know what? We're going to do some stuff. We'll line you up under center a couple times. We'll run some nakeds, right, just so you're out there moving around. We're not going to ask you to, run a quarterback draw here, but we're going to get you outside the pocket, see how the toe feels, see how you look with some easy completions. And you saw that early in the game. Easy completions for Joe Burrow. Get him out there, get him moving around, get the ball out of his hand quickly. And I thought that was a beautiful drive orchestrated by Zach Taylor. I don't think he could have really handled that any better. And then Joe alluded to this after the game. When you look at his completion percentage, does that tell the full story? No, but I've always been a big believer in that stat, right? I want the quarterback, that completion percentage better be up there, and that's what's made Joe Burrow so incredible. The laundry list of things that's made him so incredible. That completion percentage usually leading the NFL, right? And certainly wasn't like that in the game last night. And he had some misses there on that first drive, right? And a couple of plays in the first half, I think probably two, where he was just not quite on the same page as Jamar, which sometimes – rarely, but sometimes you see him not on the same page with a different receiver, but not on the same page with Jamar. That's something that we don't really see, right? And there was a couple plays there in the first half. That first drive, that third down pass, they went to him, and it kind of it looked like it was behind it. It hit Jamar's hands, but, Jamar kept the route going. Joe thought he was going to stop. You just don't see that with those two guys. And there was one, the boundary sort of like on like the 5-yard line, I think, would have been certainly deep into that red zone. He had an opportunity for Tinsley there on that first drive. Needed a perfect throw, a throw that he's capable of making, and a throw that he will make at some point throughout the rest of this year. Just kind of missed on that. So it's just uncharacteristic stuff, but we talked about this on Wednesday, right? This was going to happen. For him to just go out there and look like, nothing had changed and he'd been playing all year wasn't realistic. I think that went probably as good as the Bengals could have hoped for. It's what we expected, kind of a bit of a slower start, and then ultimately, as you kind of got going a little bit in the second half, it would start to look more like Joe Burrow, and that's basically exactly how it played out. It's kind of nice when you sit there and you talk about it. I think this is going to happen, and that's basically what transpired on the football field. But they kick a field goal there on that first drive, some positive momentum. Joe's out there, you move the ball. Do you capitalize and punch it in the end zone? No, which obviously was a theme throughout the rest of the game. We'll kind of talk about that. But you go down, you get points. He looks good. He's moving around. He doesn't get hurt, right? So that was great. A great start to the game. I thought Zach did a great job, kind of putting that plan together. And then Baltimore gets it. And you're like, all right, what Bengals defense are ultimately we going to see here in this game? And first play of the game, they hit Kohler, the tight end, and you're like, well, yep, saw that coming, right? The tight ends continue to kill the Cincinnati Bengals. They do that immediately, and they had a short yardage situation there early, turned around, handed it to Derrick Henry, and they kind of moved the ball down the field, no issues whatsoever, and it's about like a 30-yard rushing touchdown for Derrick Henry to kind of get things going for the Ravens, and bad angles from the linebackers, again, kind of a theme. Talk about that a little bit more. And then McKinley Jackson was out there on that run too, and he looked like he was clueless. He didn't know what the heck was going on. So, boom, you get that positive momentum, and then it's like, oh, nope, here we go again, right? A shootout with the Baltimore Ravens as they go down the field and immediately score, and it wasn't hard at all for the Ravens there on that first drive. And then, Joe Burrow, you get the ball back, right? And then he immediately gets sacked. And then you're like, he gets sacked, and then he pops back up, and you're like, all right, that's kind of the first time we've seen him get hit here. Offensive line, by the way, was tremendous. That was the only sack they gave up in the game. And then it's 2nd and 17, and had a go ball down the sideline to Jamar. And when he let that thing go, I was like, oh, this is old times right here. And he just missed it a little bit, right? That's something that he doesn't miss. Right, that's usually a huge gain down the sideline for Jamar. He had his man beat. Joe just missed him. Then you're in a 3rd and 17. Got to take the check down, 3 and out, and then you kind of move on from there. And then you're kind of like, all right, well, you're going to have to lean on your defense here because it's going to take a second for the offense kind of to get warmed up and get moving. And the defense showed up huge on this next possession, obviously. Barrett Carter, who still struggled in this game, that second possession for Baltimore when they were pinned. Ryan Rico had a really nice punt that kind of set this up. And then he had 2 nice plays on 1st and 2nd down. And then, boom, the defense finally creates a turnover. We talked about the past few weeks, like, okay, they're playing better, they're taking steps in the right direction, but they hadn't made that big play, right? They hadn't been able to force that turnover, and then, you get Osai screaming off the edge, boom, he hits Lamar. Cedric Johnson, a guy that I've been saying, play Cedric Johnson. He has 2 fumble recoveries in the game. That was huge, and you get it on the 3-yard line. You're like, here we go. We're in business. Defense made a play. Time for the offense to capitalize, and then obviously 4 plays from like the 2.5-yard line, really. Only 1 run, and not able to punch it in the end zone. And Joe talked about this after the game. Oftentimes, especially against a good team, if you have an opportunity like that and don't score, oftentimes that can cost you the game. Obviously, it didn't end up doing that for Cincinnati. People get mad about the play calling there in that spot. I mean, traditionally, you always run it there on first down where it's like, okay, defense made a play. We got it close. Let's turn around, let's hand the ball off and see if we can't just punch it in like that and then, get to the passing game beyond that. It's not what they did. Zach opted to throw it on first and goal. Ended up being a throwaway. Nobody was there. Then they run it with P. Ryan on the second and goal play. Didn't get much. Third and goal is really good coverage from the Ravens. And that's something that, you do have to point out. Ravens, goal line defense, red zone defense is really, really good, and they weren't making mistakes. And Joe talked about this as well. They kind of were switching up their looks there in that spot throughout the course of the game, and they did a really nice job pressing the right buttons there defensively, particularly goal line and the red zone. And then, the fourth and goal play, it's a slant there to Mike G. Could have caught it. Great coverage. Thought it was a good ball from Joe, and it just doesn't go your way there. And, that kind of felt like, oh, boy, like that's just a golden opportunity. And obviously you're not able to capitalize there. But then, it's Ravens are backed up once again. You kind of won the field position battle. That's kind of what allowed you really to dominate this game is you had the time of possession battle won and you had the field position battle won there as well. And then you immediately turn around defensively and force a 3-and-out, which was huge. This is when the defense really began stepping up. And 3rd and 10, Lamar had a guy, I think it was Zay Flowers perhaps, on the boundary, the easy first down, a little out route. And Josh Newton got beat in coverage, but Lamar missed. And that was kind of the story of the game for the Ravens, right? I think the Bengals deserve a lot of credit for what they were able to do offensively and defensively, but that didn't look like the Lamar Jackson. That didn't look like the guy that's won all those MVPs. I don't know. Who knows if it's the toe, the hamstring. Clearly he's not 100%, but he missed on several throws, which, you got to capitalize when that happens. And credit to Cincinnati, they were able to do that. They get off the field there and, kind of move on, and they go down and kick another field goal. And it just felt like through that first half where it's like, they have these opportunities. They're getting these turnovers. They're moving the ball, but they're kicking field goals, right? And you can't do that against good teams in the NFL. And it kind of just felt like that was going to eventually come back and bite them. But, Burrow did some really good things. And, Joe Flacco's been tremendous for this team, and he deserves a lot of credit. Duke Tobin, we bang on him all the time, rightfully so. One thing he's gotten right this year, that Joe Flacco trade was unbelievable. But the people that had the opinion that, the offense isn't the problem, this team's not going to be any better with Joe Burrow. Come on. Did you not watch Joe Burrow? I understand he's been banged up throughout the course of these 6 years and has missed a lot of time, but when he's out there and he's healthy, it does not get much better than him. And there was plays that he made in this game that Joe Flacco just simply can't make. And it was, a 3rd and 10, he's under duress, and he gets around the guy and he just kind of shovels it for 5 yards. And you might not think about that as like a significant play, but that makes the field goal 5 yards closer. And Evan McPherson, of course, had an unbelievable day, 6 for 6, perfect on extra points there as well. He was absolutely tremendous. But like Flacco or Browning, they don't have the ability to make a play like that, and it makes it a 42-yard attempt. And that was really significant there for Cincinnati. And you kind of wondered as well who would step up at the receiver spot, obviously with no Tee Higgins, and they gave Mitchell Tinsley a chance. Look, we all still really like Mitchell Tinsley. He plays hard, he practices hard, he deserved this opportunity, but there was not his best game, right? I mean, it had the go ball that would have been a touchdown there on that drive. They ended up having to settle for the field goal. He stopped running, right? It was a good ball from Burrow. He had his man beat. I don't know why he stopped running, if he just thought the ball was going the other way, but it doesn't work like that when you're playing with Joe Burrow. The ball can come to anybody at any given time. He stopped the route, would have been a touchdown. So that was a huge mistake there from Mitchell Tinsley. He also had 2 other drops in the second half that were big-time drops, but happy that he was out there and he was competing hard. He did make a few plays there as well, but had some more opportunities that he wasn't able to quite capitalize on there. But then, the Ravens end up getting the ball back after that, and the defense comes up with another huge play. I don't want to say it was lucky what Jordan Battle was able to do, punching that ball out, but he got beat on the route, and then Geno Stone had an opportunity to make a tackle, but he, of course, was unable to do that. And then Jordan Battle punches the ball out, and it ends up being a touchback. And, people that watch football and talk about football obviously have different opinions on that. I never really had a huge issue with it, but usually when a play like that happens in a game where you're about to score a touchdown, oh no, it's a touchback, that can often win or lose the game right there. So it was a huge break for Cincinnati. Again, Battle got beat, and Stone had an opportunity to make a tackle. He didn't do it, but Battle didn't quit on the play. He went down there and he knocked it out. Good roll, went out of bounds, and Cincinnati gets the ball back. So that obviously was a huge, huge development for the Bengals. And I'm a little bit hesitant to give a ton of credit to Jordan Battle for that just because he got beat so bad. I don't think the safeties, by the way, played well at all in this game again, but you kind of were able to get away with it. But obviously should have been a touchdown there for Baltimore. It wasn't. And the next thing you know, you're up 2-0 in the field goal, or 2-0 in the turnover battle there. And then you kind of start to get things going a little bit more offensively, move the ball. You hit Jamar on the boundary. There was a couple plays where you hit Jamar, and you deep ball to Jamar on the ensuing drive for 43 yards, and that was kind of like, okay, this team is really back here with Joe Burrow. You go down and score more points there with the field goal, and that was kind of the theme, right? You're moving the ball and you're kicking field goals, right? And you're just like, I don't know if ultimately that's going to be enough for this team. And then you had some opportunities there at the end of the half to potentially get some more points there as well. When Lamar, they get the ball back, and it's like, okay, they got a couple timeouts. They're trying to run the 2 minutes, and he throws it, but then it's a fumble, and they call it a fumble on the field. I mean, Bengals reap the benefits of that. I guess I don't fully understand the rule because to me, his arms moving forward looked kind of like an incomplete pass, but they call it a fumble. They didn't really debate it much. Cedric Johnson, once again, makes a huge play, and then you go down and ultimately score points before the half. So, going into the half, you wished you had more, but the defense was playing well. They were creating some turnovers, and Burrow was hanging in there and looked like himself. And if it felt pretty good at that point, if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, to obviously have a lead there at that point. And then the second half obviously begins, and two huge plays in the second half. We'll start with the defense really kind of setting the tone. Baltimore obviously had the ball first to start the second half, and it's like, okay, what's this defense going to do? Is Baltimore going to be able to respond, regroup at halftime, go down the field and score? You force a 3-and-out, and Myles Murphy, we'll talk about him more in a second, but I'm not going to sit here and say he's a hit, right? But these past few games have been impressive for Myles Murphy, and this was the best game of his career. In this game, and it's third down, and we talk about angles all the time with this defense, and how Geno and the linebackers seemingly are always taking bad angles. Lamar was getting outside of the pocket. Again, it's not fully healthy Lamar. He's still really, really fast and probably the fastest guy on the field, but it's not lightning quick Lamar. And it was third down. He was getting outside, and he was trying to get to the sideline like he always does and then take off downfield. Myles Murphy, a perfect angle as he kind of veered back a little bit, didn't just try to run at Lamar or even cut him over straight away to the sideline, kind of veered back, understood where the first down marker was, and just cut him off and left Lamar nowhere to go. And it was a huge play to force the 3-and-out for the Baltimore Ravens there on that first drive. And then Cincinnati gets the ball, and that's when Joe Burrow settled in. We kind of talked about this on Wednesday. Second half, he's going to start to look really like Joe Burrow, and two incredible plays from Tanner Hudson. People kind of forget, but the first down play, Joe kind of threw it up to him in the end zone, and Tanner Hudson had to turn into a DB, right, and knock it away. I thought that was tremendous. Bad decision there from Burrow. I thought that was probably the worst decision he made all night. First down, tries to force it to Tanner Hudson, and was lucky that Tanner was able to turn into a DB and knock that down. And then third down, they go right back to him. 3rd and 9, Burrow extends. Obviously, the play's not drawn up for Hudson. Rolls outside, beautiful ball, and the play of Tanner Hudson's career as a Cincinnati Bengal. He hauls it in with one hand, and then it's like, okay, 3rd and long, you pick it up, you score the touchdown. Finally, right, kind of a monkey off your back, so to speak, because it felt like there for a second, they're going to settle for 3 more, and we're just going to continue to kick field goals here. But that was just an incredible play by Tanner Hudson, an incredible play by Joe Burrow, and another play that took place earlier in that drive, which I think is significant. Talk about this team being different with Joe Flacco and Jake Browning, obviously, at the quarterback position. He was able to draw a defensive pass interference there on that drive. And it was on 3rd down, right? It was because he was able to escape, get outside the pocket, then give his guy a chance down the field. And, Joe Flacco's not doing that. He's either taking a sack or throwing it away or trying to force something. Same with Jake Browning. Burrow extends, doesn't complete the pass, but gets the pass interference call, and that allows the drive to continue to get going from there. And then this was, how they responded to Baltimore's ensuing possession kind of told you that they were going to win this game. Baltimore goes down and scores. They put together their best drive of the game besides that first drive, that opening drive. They go down, score right away, and just kind of run through people. And it was no issue whatsoever for them there on that drive. And then it was like, okay, how's Cincinnati going to respond here? Because you knew Baltimore was going to wake up. But was Cincinnati going to roll over? Were they going to turn it over? Were they going to go 3-and-out? And they were not going to do that as they continued to put some good throws together. 3rd and 7, dime to Jamar, great play. And then, 3rd and 9, they send pressure. They send the blitz, and it's Yoshi down the field. They're kind of on the seam route, and just beautiful throw. Probably best throw Burrow made all night. Touchdown. Good for Yoshi to have that moment there as well as he gets back with Joe Burrow, and just an incredible play. And you saw the excitement from Joe Burrow after that. NBC did a great job of kind of cutting to that in the slow-mo, and just a lot of emotion there from Joe Burrow. I think that's when he realized, like, okay, I'm back. That's a Joe Burrow type of throw. Again, 3rd down. Feels like maybe you're going to kick a field goal again. Nope. Down the seam. Yoshi makes an incredible play, and they never really looked back from that point on, and they were able to force a couple of more turnovers, and that was tremendous in the game. But that, to me, when he made that play to Yoshi, it was like, oh, yep, Cincinnati's winning this game, and ultimately they ended up doing that. Demetrius Knight had an interception, but how was that forced? Miles Murphy, right? Baltimore kind of driving down the field a little bit. He hits the arm, kind of just pops up in the air. Demetrius Knight, right place, right time. He hauls it in, and you kick a field goal, after that there as well. Evan McPherson, again, was tremendous. Talked about this on Wednesday there as well, how in these games, these division games, kicking is obviously huge, and McPherson was quietly having a really good year, and we talked about the confidence we have in that operation with Rico and the new long snapper in place, and he just didn't have a ton of opportunities to do much because they were losing so many games and not really kicking a ton of field goals, but when he had his chances, he was great, and this was kind of his big-time performance as awesome. I mean, 6 of 6, and they all were drilled, too. They were perfect kicks from McPherson, so a lot of us kind of were interested to see how he would respond after, flat-out losing this team some games last year in 2024, and I thought he responded tremendously, and what a performance start to finish for the Cincinnati Bengals. But kind of what I led the show off with, right? There's people out there. It just drove me crazy. I didn't get it whatsoever. Sit Joe Burrow down. What are we doing? Put him on the bench, save him for next year. It doesn't work like that when you have one of the best players in the game. I would say the best quarterback in the game. He's ready to go. He's a football player. He's getting paid to go out there and play. He wants to go out and play. You play. And it was crazy to me that it felt like, to me, it was a pretty 50-50 split on whether people in this town thought he should play or not. And that's downright embarrassing, to be honest with you. Downright embarrassing. And he went out there and he played well, and he provided that spark. He provided that juice. And, again, Flacco was doing a fine job. But do you win this game with Joe Flacco? I don't know. Because Joe Burrow was able to do some things, extending, accuracy down the field, and just the confidence and the swagger that you have as a team when he's out there. And Jamar alluded to this perfectly. They were asking him what felt different, and he kind of sat there and really thought critically there for a second and was like, you know what? The urgency level is just higher when number 9's out there, because there's an expectation of what this team and this offense should be able to accomplish, and everybody is locked in at all times, and it looked like a locked-in football team start to finish. Thought the coaching was great as well. Got to give some love to Al Golden. Al Golden's kind of been through the ringer this year. Rightfully so. His defense has been bad, but I thought he was dialing it up beautifully. Al Golden doesn't really send a ton of pressure, right, because they've been trying to just simplify everything they're doing as a defense, make it as easy as possible just to read and react to what they're seeing. Hasn't dialed up much pressure. He picked his spots in this game to dial it up, and he dialed it up perfectly in this game. And, in the NFL, talk about this all the time, if you send pressure in the NFL and you don't get close to coming home, you're in a world of trouble, because there's dudes running free around your secondary. And we've seen this Bengals defense in the past try to send pressure, not even get close to getting home, and get cooked. Plenty of opportunities in this game where they were able to get home. Osai, great game. Murphy, great game. Cedric Johnson, great game. And just the pressure was great, and I thought Al Golden did a tremendous job of dialing it up. Thought Zach was really good in the game as well. Talked about the opening drive. Thought he handled that as good as he could have. You want to talk about the goal line drive, or when you have the fumble and you have 4 plays from the 3, not getting that in. Obviously, the play caller deserves some criticism for that. That could have been a lot better. I'm sure more people, Craig obviously wanted last night, he wanted to see the Bengals run the football a little bit more. I get the frustration there because you were running it well. Right? It wasn't like, oh, we have to stop doing this because we can't run the football. You still ran the football well. Chase Brown had another solid game. Pirine kind of split those carries. I didn't have an issue with that, honestly. They like Samaje Pirine. They like what he's been able to do. And, when they signed him, my biggest questions are, okay, are we going to see the Samaje Perine we saw when this team went to the Super Bowl, or are we going to see the Samaje Perine that couldn't really get on the field with Denver and didn't really do much with Kansas City either? And he looks the same player to me. He's still got that spark. He's still got that juice. He's still got that physicality and toughness, and he's still an unbelievable blocker as well, which obviously pays dividends for this team. So when you look at, he was under 3 yards per carry. Obviously, that's not good, but I don't have an issue with them splitting the carries and just allowing Chase Brown to be a little bit more fresh. Talk about this with running backs. When you have such a high workload, the ensuing year can be difficult for you. Look at Saquon Barkley. He's the best running back, second best besides McCaffrey in the game. And, he's having a down year because he took so much punishment. They asked him to do so much last year. Well, think about what the Bengals did when Zach Moss went down. And Chase Brown was a horse for this team last year. So I don't have any issue with them kind of splitting the carries with Perine. Asking a guy that was hurt to go out there and throw it 30-plus times in the first half. Is that ideal? You could argue no, but that's also the Cincinnati Bengals. This team lines up and they throw it around the field, and that's exactly what they did in this game. That is their identity. That is why they should be good. So I don't have an issue with it, especially after the first drive where it's like, oh, yeah, Joe, he's moving around. He looks good. Yeah, let's cut it loose. Let's sling that thing. That's what they did. So really the only potential knock you could have on Zach was, oh, he didn't run it enough. But if you're going to sit there and complain about, oh, we didn't run enough, yeah, look up at the score, 32-14, went into Baltimore and took care of business on Thanksgiving night. So I got no issues with how Zach Taylor called the game. I got no issues with how Al Golden called the game either. Thought the coaching staff was tremendous. Again, with Burrow, the juice that he provided, we all talked about that, but we didn't really know. Like, it's just, he's the quarterback, right? He's, one of the best players, but is he going to be able to necessarily fix all the issues that they have? Are they going to be able to just magically play better because he's out there? Well, the urgency was up, as Jamar alluded to. The tackling was good as well. Al Golden talked about the Patriot game being the best tackling performance that they had put out there all year. I thought that was matched in the game last night against Baltimore. I think only a handful of missed tackles in the game, so that was certainly promising to see. And, just guys locked in. You saw Gesicki back out there, and he got some touches. That was obviously huge. You're working Yoshi in. You're working Tinsley in. Different guys stepping up there. And, Burrow, I just thought was tremendous, and that was the best you could have hoped for. Is he going to be better? Yes. Does he need to be better? Yes. The whole thing about Joe Burrow is he's not really inaccurate. He doesn't really miss when there's guys there. And there was a couple in the first half he missed, right? And, to sit here and say he had to have been perfect or you didn't expect that, come on. I mean, he hadn't played in several months. So, when Joe Burrow's out there, man, this team can beat anyone. I tweeted it last night. I don't care about – I do care about all the holes and they need to get fixed, but – as long as he's out there, he can overcome anything. You can have as many holes as you want. You always have an opportunity to win a game, regardless of who you're playing, when number 9's out there. And that should inspire some hope in the fan base, some hope inside the locker room there as well. We talk about this team probably being over, but the reality of the situation, it isn't, right? Unfortunately, we always find ourselves seemingly in this spot. Kind of now all of a sudden feels like last year where we're sitting here, the same record. November, late November, like, we need to run the table, but also thinking, there's a chance that I could actually be done. Now, obviously, this could come to a screeching halt Sunday against Buffalo. Josh Allen, good team. Bengals, by the way, have had great success against the Buffalo Bills. Looking forward to previewing that game, next week. But, if you win that game, then all of a sudden you're like, well, what if you beat Baltimore again? Because then if you beat Baltimore again, you're going to be favored in the final 3 games. So, obviously, that's a long way to go. I hope the players aren't thinking that way. They need to think one game at a time. But I'm just watching that game going, I just can't imagine saying that Joe Burrow shouldn't play or we don't want Joe Burrow to play or we should trade Joe Burrow. I hope people that said that feel really silly here, and I hope they take it back, and I hope they sit there and say, you know what? I let my emotions get the best of me. I was frustrated he got hurt again. I was sad he got hurt again, and I just kind of spiraled out of control, right? Because when he's out there, this team can beat anyone. He's one of the best players in the league, and it is just so awesome to watch him play. I said it all year last year, where it's like, yeah, it's frustrating. Yeah, the defense stinks or whatever, but I'm going to happily sit behind a television or get to the game and watch if Joe Burrow's out there playing because it's going to be entertaining, and there's always a chance with him out there, and it was great to see that comeback. And you saw him kind of reflect on that after the game, which Joe Burrow doesn't always do that. He's kind of stone cold, kind of puts on a facade a little bit oftentimes, but he was kind of, after the game, very honest about how he was feeling. all these injuries got to be tough on a guy. I understand he's making millions and millions of dollars, and that's awesome, and that would be great. But, all the adversity he's had to go through and just being hurt all the time and the lonely days and nights with the trainers, it's got to be tough, and it's got to take a toll on you, and he's had to go through it several times. Unfortunately, he's probably going to have to go through it several more times in his career, but each and every time he just gets back up and comes back, and the dude's built different. It was absolutely awesome to see him out there. Defensively, got to talk about several guys here on defense. How about Jalen Davis? Right, so this is a guy that's been with the organization for several years, practice squad guy, just kind of a feisty guy. And I'm sitting here watching the game, and I'm like, this is kind of exactly what the Bengals needed. They have all this youth out there on their defense. They could use a guy that's kind of been through it, right? That each and every year is fighting with everything he has to get a job, right? To get on a practice squad. That each and every day he has no security in terms of how long he's going to continue to play here, and just has that chip on his shoulder at all times. He provided a spark last week against New England, and he was awesome in the game here, obviously, against the Baltimore Ravens at that nickel spot. I'm not going to say he's Mike Hilton, right? But when Mike Hilton in previous years would go down, they'd put Jalen Davis in there, and he would produce, and he would do good work. And, when you looked at kind of the roster going through training camp, the numbers game just didn't really work out, and he was probably always going to be on the outside looking in. But now I sit here and go, well, you needed a veteran. You had one right there in Jalen Davis. Is he a perfect player? No. Is he a Pro Bowler? No. But he gives effort. He knows where he needs to be at. He's a quality tackler. He's a tough dude. He's feisty. And I thought he was tremendous in the game. That's kind of an unsung hero, right? Jalen Davis stepping up in a huge spot, and he was tremendous in the game. Dax, right? Dax has been asked to do a lot, right? And Dax has had his ups and downs. So he started the year strong. In the past few weeks, he struggled. This is a guy that was drafted, and he was safety, and then they're like, we're going to put you outside, and we're going to bring you into nickel, and then we're going to put you outside again. So they've asked him to do a lot. It's been difficult for him, but I thought he stepped up in the game and was really good there as well. When the Ravens were backed up there in the first half, he had a really nice PBU there on a second down play. That was huge, right? And he tackled better in the game there as well. So impressed with Dax. DJ Turner writes, as each week goes on, it's becoming more obvious to me that the Bengals need to extend him this offseason. And he appears to be one of the few hits that this, Duke Tobin-led draft each and every year is able to find on the defensive side. But, they didn't go at him, right? And that's kind of a sign, right? If you feel like you've got a stud back there at that corner spot, well, how often is the opposing team going at him? And Lamar and, Todd Monken and Harbaugh, those guys, they wanted nothing to do with him. Only went his way 3 times. He was able to draw the offensive pass interference call. That was obviously huge. Again, kind of a break for Cincinnati. Not really an egregious call, but, they reaped the benefits of it, and they took advantage of it. It was a good job there by DJ. So when they went at him, he was ready to make plays, but they didn't really go at him much. And I definitely think, when I'm talking about extension candidates this offseason, DJ Turner got to be at the top of the list. And then you look around the defensive line, and it's guys that have really struggled, guys that we've been hard on for a long time, and they all stepped up in this game. Joseph Osai, he deserves a lot of credit. That was a heck of an interview he gave after the game while he was eating his turkey leg. That was pretty funny. But I've been harder on Joseph Osai than just about anyone. I thought it was a mistake that they brought him back. It's a 1-year prove-it deal, $7.5 million. And, when you have a young guy that can get pressure on the quarterback, I think he's going to garner a sizable contract. I want to be very clear. He deserves a lot of credit, and I give him a lot of credit for what he was able to accomplish. It would be a mistake if the Bengals this offseason said, we like what we saw from Osai. Let's give him a 4-year deal and pay him a ton of money. That would be a massive mistake. Let's be very clear. But he's done a great job. This was probably his best game. He showed it at Texas. We've all kind of been waiting. He had the injuries, and boom, he really put it out there on display. So he was able to get home in some spots, had a huge sack there on Lamar Jackson, and obviously was able to force the fumble there early as well. So he was really, really good, and I got to give him credit for that, as the Bengals needed it from him. And then Myles Murphy, we talked about him at the top of the segment, just continuous improvement from him these past few weeks. And he's a guy that he will be back next year, regardless if you want him to or not. And if he can just continue to take strides, that would be awesome. I don't know. We got to get somebody on the show, Goodberry or someone. Obviously, he was on the show a couple of weeks ago, which was awesome. But somebody that watches the film got to tell me what's changed, because I don't know how you can be that bad and all of a sudden be this productive, right? It's the same player, right? And as far as we know, obviously everybody has their bumps and bruises, but he's not like playing through something serious here. But he looks like a totally different player. I don't know what's going on. I need somebody who knows more about football to tell me what the heck's going on, because he's gotten a lot better. I frankly don't know how it's possible. And we talked about Derrick Henry. I thought they were going to lean on him a little bit more, but the Bengals were in a spot where they were scoring some points, applying some pressure, and they had some plays where they stopped Derrick Henry. He had a couple of big runs, but for the most part, they stopped him. I thought they would go to him a little bit more. We talked about that on Wednesday. The Bengals are giving up over 5 yards per carry, and you got Derrick Henry. I'm turning around and handing the ball off and letting him work. But they stopped the run pretty well. T.J. Slayton deserves a lot of credit for that. B.J. Hill there as well. McKinley Jackson got some opportunity. Chris Jenkins was in the rotation there as well. And, those boys stepped up. They've struggled for a long time, but they stepped up in this game when the Bengals needed it the most. And then, obviously the linebackers. Barrett Carter made a couple plays, right? When they had the Ravens backed up against their own goal line, he made some plays there. He continued to take some bad angles. There was one where I was just like, oh, my God. It was a pass play, and they checked it down to Derrick Henry and his Geno Stone and Barrett Carter with a perfect opportunity to use their leverage and just force Derrick Henry out of bounds, and it's like a 6 or 7 yard pickup. And I don't know what Barrett Carter was doing, but a horrible angle. And then Geno, he over pursues. He didn't know what he's doing. And next thing you know, Derrick Henry's barreling down the football field. And guess who makes the tackle? Myles Murphy. How about that? The guy that's rushing the passer turns around, sprints all the way down the field, and tracks down Derrick Henry. Myles Murphy, got to give him credit for his performance there. That was unbelievable to see. And, the linebackers, they struggled throughout the game, but they've gotten a little bit better, right? These past few weeks have been baby steps in the right direction. And they're rookies. So, you drafted them high. You got to keep playing them for now. And it's good to see the incremental improvement. Long way to go, but they've gotten a little bit better each and every week. So you talked about waiting for that big play to happen on defense, force that turnover. They've been playing solid the past 2 weeks, but there was no big turnover to really, capitalize with. Zach talked about them coming in bunches, and boy, did they. 5 turnovers there. And if you turn the football over in the National Football League 5 times, you're not going to win. And, it was a huge storyline in the game, and it was great to see the defense step up, and they're certainly going to need to do the same next week against the Buffalo Bills. But a great night for the Cincinnati Bengals, 32-14. They go in there and dominate that game. That thing, if you would have capitalized a couple more times or 1 or 2 more times, or shoot, even the one time where you had it up first and goal from the 3, this thing looks even uglier than it did. But make no mistake about it, Cincinnati went into Baltimore and dominated the Baltimore Ravens in this game. They owned them. They smacked them around. And it was great to see. That was a team, obviously, that was leading the division. And, not going to be the case anymore. We'll see what Pittsburgh does. Close eye on that game Sunday, right? Pittsburgh and Buffalo are going to square off, and it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Because obviously you're watching it because you play Buffalo next week, and you're also watching it we'll see. Pittsburgh can lose and continue to lose some games here. And, personally, I would love to see Baltimore get the win here. Obviously, we all should be rooting for Buffalo in the game. And, you don't want a ticked off Bills team coming in that just lost. And obviously you want the division, the Ravens and Steelers, to continue to lose. So, we'll have a close eye on that game. I think Buffalo's going to win that game. And, we'll see. We'll see, because huge game next week. Huge game for the Cincinnati Bengals next week against the Buffalo Bills. But what a great night, start to finish. Burrow back. Plays well, extends, moves around fine, had some success running the ball. Coaching staff was good. Defense was good. Forcing turnovers. Best game all year. We talked about them not playing complimentary football. Looked like that was going to continue in the first quarter and in the second quarter, where it's like they've had opportunities here and they're not scoring, but they put it together in the second half, and that was obviously great to see. Huge win for the Bengals. All right, before we continue, I got to make an announcement here, because we got some T-shirts that are up on our websites here as I try to pull this up on the fly. And yes, because we got a little deal going. Okay, so Chatterbox Reds, Chatterbox Bengals, Chatterbox Bearcats, kind of our 3 main gigs here. Obviously at Chatterbox, covering the Cincinnati sports. And there's T-shirts up on the site, chatterboxsports.com/store. And we got a deal right now. You can get 2 shirts for $40 if you use the code DOUBLE. Chatterbox Bengals, Go get your swag. There's an orange shirt and a black shirt. It's a Black Friday deal, so this is only running through December 10th. Obviously, it is November 28th, so go get your T-shirts now, and 100% of the proceeds go towards your favorite Chatterbox creators. So 2 shirts, $40. Great deal. You can buy one, I think, for like $25, but the deal is both the shirts for $40. Use code DOUBLE. Runs through December 10th. Again, Chatterbox Bengals, Chatterbox Bearcats, Chatterbox Reds. You can find it on our site, chatterboxsports.com/store, and show your support for what we're doing here at Chatterbox. And there's some pretty cool shirts up there on the website. So I don't know if we'll have like an off the bench or with my show in the future, but right now it's Bengals, Reds, Bearcats. Go get your swag on our website. Make sure you check that out. All right, let's talk Ohio State, Michigan. Right, this is always, tremendous to have an opportunity to get to watch this each and every year. Right, great game. It always seemingly lives up to the hype, especially here recently. And the storyline obviously is Ohio State. They're the best team in the country, but they have a Michigan problem. Ryan Day has a Michigan problem. That is not just a fugazi or fairy dust. That's a real thing, right? Past 4 years, they've gotten absolutely dominated by Michigan. Ohio State going to be 9.5-point favorites in this game. To me, okay, that didn't really do much for me. Last year, Michigan was a 20-point dog, and they won, right, in Columbus. So this game, obviously, in Ann Arbor. If you check the weather, awesome. In the 30s, going to be snowing. That's what I want to see when Ohio State and Michigan are playing. And also, if you're Michigan, that kind of makes you lick your chops a little bit because you want to turn it into a nasty, physical, violent, punch-you-in-the-mouth game. Obviously, they've been able to do that over the course of the past few years. Ohio State obviously has an advantage from a skill perspective and a speed perspective. Again, they've had that advantage now for several years, and it hasn't been enough. Joel Klatt made this point. I thought it was a great point. When you look at Ohio State and how they build their team, they build a team that can win a national title, right? And they obviously have the resources and the NIL to do that. And they go out and they get really good players, right? Really fast players, right? Really flashy players, 5-star quarterback, right? And they're building to win a national title. When you look at Michigan and how they're built, obviously they want to win a national title too, and they won one a couple of years ago. But they pretty much recruit and build their team around trying to beat Ohio State. And that was a change towards the end of Harbaugh's tenure with Michigan, where he was not having any success against them. And he was like, you know what, we need to change what we're doing here. We need to recruit and build our team solely with the mindset of how we can go beat Ohio State. And it has worked. It has absolutely worked. They want to run the ball. They want to be physical in the trenches. We talked about all the speed and the skill that Ohio State has. Well, they've been dominated in the trenches over the course of the past 4 years. That's something that Michigan hopes to continue in this game as well. Look, there's no Kenneth Grant and there's no Mason Graham anymore for Michigan. Obviously, they held things down from the interior perspective last year and ultimately dominated the game. Those guys are gone. The interior for Michigan defensively still solid, but it ain't Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham. So it'll be interesting to see how Michigan operates as far as how they load the box and what kind of pressure they bring from an interior perspective when it comes to trying to stop the run. Now, this is pretty obvious to anyone that's an Ohio State fan and has watched this game. For whatever reason, Ryan Day goes in and wants to play Michigan at their game. You don't need to do that. You don't need to show that you're the tougher team or the more physical team and that you're going to try to run the football. Ohio State, their biggest weakness is running the ball. They ran the ball better last year than they do this year, and they tried to run it against Michigan, and it didn't work. If they sit here and try to run, pass, first, second down, run, that's just stupidity, in my opinion, especially on the road. Play your game. If you play your game, your guys are good enough to win, right? Trust your quarterback. I sort of get it last year, right? They were protecting Bill Howard. Let's be very clear here. He wasn't the caliber quarterback that Julian Sayin is. He won the national title. He made some big throws. He deserves credit, but they didn't trust him fully, right? You should trust Julian Sayin fully, right? This is a guy that if he goes out and wins this game is going to be right back to being the front runner for the Heisman Trophy. And if he beats Mendoza in Indiana and Indianapolis, he should get the trophy. Trust him. He's been great. He's given you no reason not to trust him. Has he made one or two bad decisions? Sure. But the good throws, the ceiling, it's incredible. He takes care of the football. He operates with a sense of calm, right, and poised, and he goes out there and he delivers the rock to his playmakers. Let him throw it around, right? I get it's going to be cold. I get it's going to be snowy. But if there isn't, crazy wind gusts, go throw the football with Julian Sayin. Don't try to get that into what Michigan wants you to do. Don't try to get into this, time of possession, long drawn-out drives, running the football. Cut it loose, right? And you saw them do that in the playoff run last year where it's like, what are you doing against Michigan? And then luckily for them, they corrected and said, oh, we're cutting it loose against Tennessee. We're cutting it loose against Oregon. They did it. It worked. They blew them out. They went on to win the national title. Don't play Michigan at their game. Throw the football. Throw it around. Use your quarterback. Use your skill guys and go from there. And another key part of this game is, of course, going to be the injuries. Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith did not play last week. Look, it's tough with injuries in college, right? It's not like the NFL. You can usually predict it a little bit more. My gut says both those guys are going to play. Jeremiah Smith on a podcast with Caleb Downs was like, yeah, things are trending in that direction. It's not about them playing or not or dressing or not. It's how effective they can be. Or it's like, well, he looks like a borderline decoy out there. Or no, he looks like himself out on the football field. That's going to be what's going to be fascinating to see. Again, I think both those two guys play. How effective will they be? That remains to be seen. But regardless, you've got that receiver room's loaded. Yeah, you might not have heard of all the guys in there, but they're all highly touted recruits, and they all can play, and they've all banked some reps with Julian Sayin. Throw the football around. I don't care, even if Smith and Carnell Tate aren't fully effective. And then injuries for Michigan as well. No Justice Haynes in this game, and he's probably their best player. He's hurt his foot a couple of weeks ago. He's not going to play in this game. That's huge, right? That is huge. Jordan Marshall, Moeller guy, former Mr. Ohio, he's banged up as well. I think he will play. If he doesn't play, they're in some serious trouble here in this game, but I expect Jordan Marshall to play. Again, how effective is he going to be? These players, they're not just going to sit out the Ohio State-Michigan game. That's why you come play college football at one of these two spots to play in this game. So these guys that are banged up, they're going to play, but how effective are they going to be? And another guy, Max Bredesen, is a key factor for them. He's that fullback position for Michigan. They love running behind him. He's really sets the tone from a toughness and physicality perspective. He's banged up. How he looks in this game, if he's able to go, is huge for Michigan. Because what they want to try to do is they want to run the football, and they want to do their RPO stuff with Underwood, give him an opportunity to potentially use his legs and try to keep the defense off balance. That's what Michigan wants to do in this game. If you get in a drop passing game against this Ohio State defense with a freshman quarterback, you're cooked. Can't happen. So they want to run their RPO stuff. They want to give Underwood some opportunities. He's going to be how Bryce Underwood handles this game is going to say a lot about him. I never was a big Underwood guy. I thought he was kind of overrated, but got to give him credit in the big moments this year. He's been solid. He's been rock solid, but now he's going against an NFL guy, defensive coordinator in Patricia, that has the best defense and the best personnel in the country. How's he going to handle that? Because if you try to force some stuff early in this game against this defense, you're in trouble, right? If you hold on to this ball too long against this defense, you're in trouble. Right, so he's going to have to be decisive with the football, make quick decisions, and obviously have to use that RPO stuff. Because if you get in a drop-back passing game against that Buckeye defense, you're cooked. Couple of other important elements to this game. From a play-calling perspective for Ohio State, I need to see a sense of urgency trying to get the ball to their best players. Right, I talked about throwing it around, whatever. That's fine, but you have to let your best players touch the ball in this game. We just talked about it. They're being banged up. Carnell Tate, of course, and Jeremiah Smith. But you have to get the ball in their hands and let them have an opportunity here. If they don't, that'll just tell me that they're decoys out there, right? But to me, you got to get the ball to 4, right? You didn't get the ball to 4 last year. That can't happen if you're Ryan Day. You have to get the ball to your best playmakers in space and give them an opportunity to do something with it. So play calling is going to be huge here for Ohio State. It always is in this game. Don't play Michigan's game, right? There's no reason to play Michigan's game. Play your game. That will be good enough. And this isn't a best bet of the weekend. I've made a lot of money betting on this game the past 4 years. Everything would say take Ohio State. If they're just not stupid, they should be able to go in there and cover 9.5. But this is one of those games where everything, absolutely everything, goes out the window in a game like this. Record doesn't matter. Spread of the game doesn't matter, right? And, of course, this is Michigan's national title, and they got it at home. The place is going to be rocking. There's going to be some punches probably thrown before the game. There's probably maybe some after the game there as well. But make no mistake, there is no love between these two teams. And you remember how it ended last year? Michigan planting the flag at Ohio Stadium and Jack Sawyer getting his feelings hurt and kind of going after it, and Ryan Day kind of standing there in his bomber jacket with a clueless look on his face. They're going to be ready to go, right? And they better be ready to go because Ryan Day at this point, I talk about him, I look at the best coaches in the country, especially after that national title. Kirby Smart 1, Ryan Day's right there at 2. There's really only a couple things that Ryan Day needs to do to potentially be in the driver's seat as the best coach. 1 is finally take care of Michigan, and 2 is eventually beat Kirby. Obviously, he's 0-1 against Kirby in his career. Maybe you have an opportunity to play him in the playoff. And if Ryan Day can beat Michigan and beat Kirby Smart this year, look out. Look out for the Ohio State Buckeyes. But, again, everything goes out the window in this game. You can't, as an Ohio State fan, you can't just, we're going to dominate, right? Like, you can't say that anymore, right? You've lost 4 straight games, and you shouldn't have lost any of them, right? You were the better team in all 4 of them, and, you lost each and every game. So we'll see how they respond. Weather, Michigan's favor, obviously, but if Ohio State does what they do, throw the football, get it to, their fast guys, even if your 2 best players are dinged up or 2 best receivers are dinged up, there's other guys that are really fast and have a lot of skill there as well. Get them the football, let Julian Sain be aggressive, throw it, and don't play Michigan-style game, right? Because I don't think Michigan has the firepower to keep up with you if you just kind of attack down the field, especially against your defense, right? But there's no reason for them to be tight in this game and, to be scared. You're the reigning national champions, and you're undefeated, right? So even if you lose this game, you're still fine as far as potentially winning a national title, which, by the way, I think the rest of the country needs to be rooting for Ohio State here, because if somebody's going to catch them, I think they're going to be undefeated, and it's going to be a close game late, and they're not going to know how to deal with it if somebody's going to catch them. If they lose to Michigan again, they're all ticked off like they were last year. Look out. So I think the rest of the country definitely should be rooting for Ohio State, but going to be fascinating to see. Once again, Ryan Day's got the better team. He's got the better players, but he's on the road, hostile environment. Is he going to be, nervous and clenched up and scared, or is he going to go out there and let it rip? We'll see. And if he does that, Ohio State will be fine. But if not, you're going to be in another spot where it's close late, and Michigan might be able to pull it off for the 5th year in a row. How about that? That would be absolutely insane. Iron Bowl, Alabama and Auburn. Alabama 5.5-point favorite right now. And, it's interesting when you're talking about Kalen DeBoer. He loses a game against Florida State, and then Florida State goes through a year. They're obviously not a good team. What are they, 5-6? They play Florida this week. But, he really got the confidence back of the fan base, and I think the university, the athletic department, as well as he really put together some really good wins and navigated that gauntlet of a schedule in the SEC and did a tremendous job. And then, had the game against Oklahoma. It was a bad matchup for Alabama, and they turned the ball over too many times, lost the turnover battle, and ultimately lost the game. No room for error here for Kalen DeBoer and the Alabama Crimson Tide. This is the biggest game that he has coached as the head coach of Alabama, and you can't lose this game if you're Kalen DeBoer. You absolutely cannot lose this game. All of that trust and confidence that you've built after the Florida State game from the fan base, from the athletic department, that will all evaporate if you lose this game. If you're the Alabama Crimson Tide and it's a 12-team playoff, you can't miss back-to-back years. You can't do it. Now, if you win, you're in the SEC title game, and then we'll see, how that goes. It's like, well, if you play A&M and lose, they have 3 losses. We'll have that conversation later on. But I know for sure if you lose this game, you're out of the playoff with 3 losses, and that's 2 losses basically, not including the layup game against Eastern Illinois, to end the year. Right, and that obviously can't happen. But we talked about the Oklahoma game being a bad matchup for Alabama. This is a good matchup on paper for Alabama. They're not really good at much, but they're good at stopping the run. It's fine. Alabama doesn't really want to run the ball. They're not good at running the ball. Let's see where they're at. In the country, they're 11th in the country against the run. So Alabama, I'm going to assume that their struggles on the ground are going to continue. They're 100th in the country against the pass. Well, that's what Alabama wants to do. They want to throw the ball around with Ty Simpson, and very interested to see how he plays in this game, because this is the biggest game of his career, right? Playing in the Iron Bowl, and he doesn't get it at home. This ain't a Bryant-Denny. This is on the road at Jordan-Hare, and as long as he doesn't force stuff and protects the football, takes what the defense gives him, Alabama will be fine in this game. But if he gets a little bit jittery and he turns the ball over like he did against Oklahoma, and he breathes life into that stadium, right? Because the place is going to be rocking to start. But if Alabama can get on them quickly and boom, it's 14-0, they're going to back off as a crowd because their team stinks, right? But if you give Auburn some momentum, you turn it over early, they score, they take a lead, look out. Look out, because this game at that stadium, talk about everything going out the window for the Michigan-Ohio State game, it goes out the window in this game each and every year. And, it's funny because Ohio State dominated the rivalry for so long, and now Michigan's dominating here of late. I mean, this Auburn-Alabama, it go either way, either year, as far as who wins. If you remember the last time they played at Jordan-Hare, With Jalen Milroe, 4th and goal from the 30, and they catch it and they win. Just crazy, right? Saban's last Iron Bowl, unbelievable. And then, you had the drive from Bryce Young where he goes down the field and scores. Like, these games, when they're at Jordan-Hare, are bonkers, are absolutely bonkers. I don't believe in ghosts, but when I watch this game, at Jordan-Hare, I kind of believe in ghosts for a little bit because there's some weird stuff that happens in this game each and every year, especially when it is at Jordan-Hare. And it's at night. I mean, that place at night, man, look out. Look out. I get Auburn's bad. I get they're really bad. I get their coaches fired. They don't even know they're playing at quarterback. They're going to go with Ashton Daniels, but they didn't even start him last game against Mercer. They went with the other kid who played well, but it was against Mercer. So who knows? They're going to go with Ashton Daniels here. And they obviously need him to run the ball, right? Because we've said this a million times. That is the recipe against Alabama. You got to be able to have a running quarterback. Pavia, right? Perbula in Missouri had some success. Mateer, of course, there as well. If you have the threat of a run against this Alabama defense, you have a chance. Ashton Daniels is going to have to run the ball well in the game. And then Cam Coleman, he's a tremendous wide receiver there on the outside for them, but he's at Auburn, and they don't have a quarterback, so people don't really know exactly what's going on with him. Like, he's not like a household name because he just doesn't have many opportunities because his quarterback stinks. But he's a guy that can have a breakout game. He's a really good player, and usually your best players tend to rise to the occasion in the biggest moments. Wouldn't surprise me at all if Cam Coleman had a really big game. But it's going to come down to Ty Simpson, his decision making. If he protects the football, he's going to be in a good spot. But Alabama, by the way, Shep, the wide receivers coach, co-offense coordinator, he's going to take the Oregon State job. So that's a bit of a distraction there as well, which this time of the year, a lot of teams are dealing with it, especially if you're having success. Your coaches are going to be taking calls for other places, and I don't think it's a huge loss, right? It's not like Ryan Grubb's leaving, right? But that is significant that he's leaving for the Oregon State job. So if Ty Simpson can handle the moment, can handle the pressure of going into Jordan-Hare and playing this game, if he can protect the football start to finish, I think they're going to be in a spot where they should win this game. Again, it's a 5.5-point spread. Alabama is a heck of a lot better than 5.5 points than Auburn, right? But it's at Jordan-Hare. It's the Iron Bowl. Everything kind of goes out the window. So if they protect the football, get it to their playmakers, don't get burnt on the ground, right? They're going to give up some points, but, no reason Auburn should be anywhere like in the 30-point range. That shouldn't happen. Alabama's got enough firepower offensively to take advantage and go in there and win. But the pressure on the Tide here is absurd, right? Because there for a while, when they were kind of going on that run, there was pressure of, well, you lost to Florida State, you better win some games, but nobody was really taking them serious from a national perspective there for a while at the beginning of that run. But, you can't lose to Auburn and miss the playoff again if you're Kalen DeBoer, especially when you're a much better team than Auburn. It's one thing if Auburn's a top 10 team and it's like, all right, we'll see what happens. You're a top 10 team, but Auburn's unranked, and they're not even. You win this game, Auburn's not even going to a bowl game. So that'll be huge for how Kalen DeBoer operates. I really liked how he performed in the Iron Bowl last year. You never know. You get these new coaches, then you put them in this rivalry game, how they're going to do. Really liked how he operated last year, and he had Jalen Milroe, who is not a good quarterback. This year with Ty Simpson, putting the ball in his hands, giving him some easy stuff early, I think will put Alabama in a good spot to go win this game and ultimately go on to the SEC title game, and then we'll see. We'll see from there. But we will revisit this game in a matter of moments for our best bets of the weekend. But two huge ones. Wanted to spend some time there. Obviously, the game, Ohio State and Michigan, and then the Iron Bowl there as well. Lots of other good games this weekend as well. Tonight, Texas A&M, right? So, if Arch could pull that off, man, his biggest game probably of his career. Obviously played Ohio State week 1, but a huge opportunity for Arch tonight to knock off an undefeated team, best team in the SEC. We'll see how he does. Egg Bowl, obviously, and we're live here on the show. That gets kicked off in about 45 minutes, so that's going to be a good game. And Arizona State tonight as well. Georgia Tech at 3:30. Great games all over the place. And 3 o'clock, you get a football game, Bears and Eagles. Who would have thought the Bears are good? Not me, but they are. They're playing Philadelphia. That should be a good game. So this outstanding sports weekend continues, and they'll cap things off Saturday night, Jordan-Hare Stadium, Alabama and Auburn. All right, let's do our best bets of the weekend before we get out of here on the show. And, we've been heating up a little bit with our best bets of the weekend. Obviously, that is positive. We are 28, 31-2 on the year. So we're right on the cusp of, turning this thing around and getting in the green. And we got 7 plays this weekend, which we've never done 7 before, but we are doing 7 here on the show. So here we go. Let's get into it. Our first play of the weekend, the Tennessee Volunteers at home against Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt. Clark Lee this morning just signed a 6-year extension. We were talking about him as a potential candidate for a lot of these jobs around the country. Penn State, potentially maybe in Arkansas, right? There's big jobs open. Ole Miss, LSU. Could Clark Lee throw his hat into the mix? No, he's staying at Vanderbilt. Vandy's a good story, and Vandy's a good football team as well. And if they win this game, they deserve to be in the playoff with 2 losses and not in the SEC title game. If they go into Neyland Stadium and win, that's one of the toughest places to play in the country. Now, Tennessee, I think people disrespect that. Like 2 of their losses is to Georgia and Alabama. Like, it's, you're acting like they lost to Mississippi State here. It didn't happen, right? So I think Tennessee's a good football team. I've always liked what Heupel's done. They just went into the swamp and beat the brakes off of Florida. That was huge. Aguilar's only got a few games left in his career. What a story, right? He's been solid for them. And, they're early. He was getting some Heisman love. And then, when you lose some games, obviously that's going to go away. But really impressed with Aguilar, what he's done. Up and down journey. He's been at different spots. And they won the trade, right, with Nico. He was at UCLA, and then he comes over to Tennessee. What a story he's been this year. 2.5-point favorites. I'm laying the 2.5 with the Tennessee Volunteers at Neyland, right? Hostile environments. I think they have the better team. They don't have the better record, but Tennessee's got some dudes there. It's a really good offense. Defense has played better of late, and I'm going to lay the 2.5 with the Volunteers against Vandy, and I think they get the job done and win. But what a great game that is on Saturday. We previewed this one, the Iron Bowl, Alabama and Auburn. The matchup favors Alabama, and you only got to win by 6 points in order to cover the spread. It's Jordan-Hare Stadium, and everything goes out the window. The ghosts come out there. Crazy stuff happens. That's why I'm hesitant to do this, but, kind of similar to the Ohio State where it's like, you should cover. Ohio State, I stayed away. I'm not staying away here. Give me the Alabama Crimson Tide -5.5 in the Iron Bowl. Kalen DeBoer settles things down after the loss against Oklahoma. They go on probably to go to the SEC championship game. And, we'll see who Alabama plays. And then, if they lose that, we'll have the conversation about, well, should they get in with 3 losses or not? We'll see. But I think Alabama's ready to respond. I think they're going to be locked in. I think they're going to take advantage of the weaknesses throughout the Auburn defense from a passing, stopping in the pass perspective. And I think they're going to play well enough to cover the spread, -5.5, Alabama. All right, 5 NFL plays here for Sunday. Again, we liked the Packers and we liked the Bengals, but we didn't do them on Wednesday, so can't include those in our best bets of the weekend. Houston Texans, I love this. I loved it more at 4.5. It's 3.5 is what we're going to take it at. They're at Indianapolis. It's the best defense in the NFL, right? Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, they get after you. Their linebackers are good. Stingley, he locks down somebody on his side of the field. D'Amico's done a really nice job with them. Offensively, they have gotten better. And they're getting their quarterback back in C.J. Stroud. Davis Mills has held down the fort, has done a nice job. Nobody talking about Houston. They win this game, look out. They might win the division. They're still a couple of games back. Obviously, Jacksonville's still ahead of them in the standings, too, beyond just Indianapolis. But I like this Texan team. I picked them to win the division at the beginning of the year. I didn't think the defense would be this good. It's the best defense. Well, that's what the numbers say. I think it's definitely a top 3 defense with Seattle and Denver there as well. But the Houston Texans, they're playing good football of late. Stroud gets back. He's had a chance to kind of, refresh a little bit. Obviously, he was hurt, but, he was struggling, kind of some time off. Now he's going to get back into it here on the road against Indianapolis. I think the Texans cover the number. Wouldn't be surprised if they won the game. I like that more at +4.5, but we got it at +3.5. Speaking of +4.5, Cleveland Browns bet against them last week against the Raiders. Didn't work out. Now they're at home against the Niners. And Brock Purdy obviously struggled immensely against the Carolina Panthers in the first half. The weather is going to be crappy. It's going to be cold. It's going to be windy. It's going to be snowy and rainy. And I love the Browns in that spot. Talking about good defenses, the Cleveland Browns defense, particularly at home, incredible. Myles Garrett's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. Again, he's sacking people left and right. They can cover. They can get after the passer beyond just Myles Garrett. And I think Brock Purdy's going to struggle a little bit in this game with the environment. Now, the question will be, can Shedeur do enough, right? Can they run the ball with Judkins enough? Can he take care of the football enough to cover this number? This opened at like 6 or 6.5, and it's gone down a lot. So don't love that, but I will take it at plus 4.5. Give me the Cleveland Browns over the San Francisco 49ers. Dolphins at home against the Saints, minus 5.5. Dolphins coming off a bye. The 2 weeks leading up to the bye, they've played better football. Tua, all of a sudden, he's completing some passes, taking care of the football a little bit more. McDaniel, everybody thought he was going to get fired. Yeah, they fired the GM. They held on to the head coach, and he's kind of, he's done a nice job. It's not like they're out here. I mean, they did beat the Bills, obviously, which is a huge win for them. But, they're all fighting for their job there in Miami. They're favorites in this game. They need to win again. Saints are putrid, right? That's the worst offense probably in the National Football League. The defense isn't very good either. Only have to lay 5.5 points at home. Weather's going to be solid in Miami. I'll take the Dolphins minus 5.5 in the spot. Tampa Bay, I was high on them early in the year. Now, they're certainly coming back down to life here. The injuries have stacked up against them, but they're about to get healthier this week, and that's why I like a -3 at home against Arizona in this game. Baker should be good to go. Obviously, he's really banged up, but I think he's going to play. Godwin is back, and Bucky is back, Irving, the running back, and that's huge. I think they're going to really need to run the ball in this game. Jacoby Brissett's been a nice story for them, but I think he's not going to be able to get enough going for them offensively. I'm going to lay the points here with the guys coming back. I think it's huge for Tampa, and they need this game. They absolutely need this game as, they're all of a sudden, here's the Panthers as a team that can potentially catch you at the top of your division. Huge game for Tampa. I think they take care of business at home, -3 against the Cardinals. Lastly, usually when it's a massive spread in the National Football League, I am not a fan of taking that. But I'm going to lay the 11.5 with the Seattle Seahawks. They kind of messed around a little bit with Tennessee last week. We're still able to get the win. Darnold, of course, had the turnovers against Los Angeles, the Rams. But I don't see Minnesota scoring many points at all in this game. It's a really good defense for Seattle. I don't think McCarthy's going to play. I think they're going to go with some guy, Brosmer, I think his name is, that hasn't played much football at all. And Seattle clearly the better team in this spot. Vikings very much reeling, particularly on the offensive side, and I'm going to lay the 11.5. Again, big spread in the National Football League. Don't love doing that, but I'm going to do it here with the Seattle Seahawks. That defense is really, really good. I don't see Minnesota scoring more than 13, 14 points in this game, to be completely honest with you. So we'll go with 7, first time this year. Tennessee -2.5, Alabama -5.5, Texans +3.5, Browns +4.5, Dolphins -5.5, Bucks -3, and the Seattle Seahawks -11.5. Our best bets of the weekend. All right, appreciate everybody hanging out with us here on a Friday. Lots of people are obviously off today, but, Victory Friday. Had to do a show, obviously, after the Bengals pick up a huge win against the Baltimore Ravens. Joe Burrow's back. What a night for the Bengals last night in Baltimore. They pick up the win. So happy to come in, obviously, and do the show, and appreciate everyone, as always, for hanging out with us here at the program. And you will find this show out in podcast form later this afternoon. That will be available wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, iHeart, Spotify, you name it. And also our clips on YouTube will be out there as well. Our Bengals reaction, that'll be up. Michigan, Ohio State preview, Iron Bowl preview, best bets of the weekend, all will be up on the channel later today. Appreciate everyone. As always, we will be back on Monday, regular scheduled programming. Reed Mouse back in the house. And certainly look forward to hearing Reed and seeing if he still wants Joe Burrow to sit down or if he's all right with him playing now. So we'll pick Reed's brain a little bit on Monday when it comes to that. Also have some guests lined up next week. Looking forward to that. Appreciate everyone. As always, give me a follow at StoneShields_ on Twitter. Give the show a follow as well at the Stone Shields as we get our social media more up and running here at this point. But appreciate everyone as always, and have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you on Monday.